There is a strange moment in life that almost no one talks about. A moment where everything on the outside still looks the same. Your life, your routine, the people around you. And yet, something feels deeply wrong. Not loud, not dramatic. Just empty. You wake up, you go through your day, you say the right things, you do what you're supposed to do, but inside, there is this quiet sense that you are no longer where you are meant to be. And the most unsettling part is this: you can't explain it. Nothing is obviously broken. And yet something inside you feels like it is slowly falling apart. Carl Jung believed that this feeling is not a mistake. It is not something to fix. It is the beginning of something most people will spend their entire lives avoiding. Because what you are feeling right now is the moment your old self can no longer contain who you are becoming. What makes this feeling so difficult to deal with is not just that it is there, but that it doesn't seem to go away. You try to ignore it at first. You tell yourself that it's just a phase, that you're tired, that you just need to get back on track. And for a moment, that almost seems to work. You distract yourself. You stay busy. You focus on what needs to be done. And during the day, when everything is moving, you can almost forget that something feels off. But then, there are those quiet moments. The moments where everything slows down. Late at night, early in the morning. Or simply when you find yourself alone with your own thoughts. And that's when it comes back. Not aggressively, but quietly. A subtle but undeniable feeling that something in your life no longer feels like it belongs to you. And the more you try to push it away, the clearer it becomes. Because this is not the kind of feeling that disappears when you ignore it. It lingers. It follows you through your days. It shows up in small moments, in thoughts you can't fully grasp, in a restlessness you can't explain. And slowly, it begins to affect the way you experience everything. Things that once felt normal start to feel distant. Things that once made sense start to feel empty. And the strangest part is this: you might not even be able to point to a single reason why, which is exactly why so many people start to question themselves. They assume that something must be wrong with the way they think, that they are overreacting, that they are ungrateful, that they are somehow creating a problem where there shouldn't be one. So they try to fix it. They try to improve their situation, change their habits, become more positive, more focused, more disciplined, hoping that if they just do things better, the feeling will disappear. But no matter how much they adjust the outside, something on the inside remains untouched. Because this feeling was never created by your circumstances in the first place. It comes from somewhere deeper. And if you keep treating it like a surface-level problem, you will never understand what it is actually trying to tell you. There comes a point where this feeling is no longer something you can easily push aside. Not because it suddenly becomes louder, but because it becomes clearer. You begin to notice it in the way you respond to things, in the way certain conversations start to feel forced, in the way environments that once felt familiar now feel strangely distant, and slowly, almost without realizing it, you begin to sense that something about the way you have been living no longer feels fully aligned with who you are. But this is where it becomes complicated. Because the life you are living did not just appear out of nowhere. It was built over time, through choices, through expectations, through adapting yourself to what felt necessary at different moments in your life. You learned how to behave, how to respond, how to present yourself. And piece by piece, you shaped a version of yourself that could function in the world around you. And for a long time, that version of you worked. It helped you belong. It helped you move forward. It helped you build a life that, from the outside, might even look completely fine. But something inside you has continued to develop, quietly, beneath all of that. And now, that deeper part of you is beginning to surface, not as a clear identity, but as tension. Because the person you have become and the person you are becoming are no longer the same. And that gap is what you are feeling. It's not just confusion. It's not just emptiness. It's the friction between who you have been and who you can no longer avoid becoming. And this is the moment where many people hesitate. Because acknowledging this feeling means questioning things that once felt certain. It means admitting that parts of your life may no longer fit. That certain roles, expectations, or even relationships might be connected to a version of you that is slowly fading. And that realization is not easy to face. Because it asks something from you that goes against everything you've learned to do. It asks you to stop adapting and start paying attention, not to what is expected of you, but to what you actually feel. And if you stay with that feeling, instead of immediately trying to escape it or explain it away, you slowly begin to notice something that is both unsettling and strangely revealing at the same time. Because beneath the confusion, beneath the restlessness, beneath that quiet sense that something is off, there is something else. Something that has been there for much longer than you might realize. Something you have been moving away from, often, without even knowing it. Because over time, without consciously deciding to do so, you learn which parts of yourself are acceptable and which parts are not. You learn what gets approval, what creates connection, what makes things easier. And just as importantly, you learn what to hide, what to suppress, what to keep out of sight because it doesn't quite fit into the version of yourself that the world seems to respond well to. And slowly, almost invisibly, you begin to organize your life around that limited version of who you are. You become more of what is expected and less of what feels uncertain, uncomfortable, or difficult to explain. And for a while, this works. It creates stability. It creates clarity. It creates a sense of direction that feels safe enough to follow. But what you push away does not disappear. It doesn't dissolve. It doesn't fade. It doesn't simply stop existing because you have learned not to look at it. It stays with you, and over time, it begins to express itself in indirect ways, not as a clear message, but as a feeling, a tension, a restlessness, a quiet sense that something essential is missing, even when everything around you seems to be in place. And this is where most people start to distract themselves even more. They fill their time. They seek more stimulation. They keep themselves occupied so they don't have to sit with that feeling for too long. Because the moment you stop, the moment things become quiet, you begin to sense it again. That part of you that has been waiting, not demanding attention in an obvious way, but patiently, persistently, reminding you that there is more to you than the life you have been maintaining. And the longer you avoid it, the stronger that feeling becomes. Not because something is going wrong, but because something inside you is no longer willing to stay hidden. At a certain point, something begins to shift. Not because your life suddenly changes on the outside, but because the way you relate to what you are feeling starts to change on the inside. Because instead of immediately trying to escape that discomfort, instead of trying to silence it or push it away, you begin to stay with it just a little longer. And in doing so, you start to realize that this feeling is not random. It is not meaningless. And it is not there to confuse you. It is there to show you something that you have not been fully willing to see. Because the discomfort you are experiencing is not simply about being lost. It is about no longer being able to continue in the same way as before. And once you begin to see that, even slightly, everything starts to feel different. You begin to notice where you have been going along with things that don't truly resonate with you. Where you have been saying yes while something inside you was quietly saying no. Where you have been holding on to roles, expectations, or patterns that once made sense, but no longer feel alive. And this realization can feel confronting, because it removes the illusion that everything is fine, and replaces it with something far more honest. But honesty, even when it feels uncomfortable, is the beginning of real clarity. Because once you stop trying to force yourself back into a version of your life that no longer fits, you create space. Space to question. Space to feel. Space to notice what is actually there, beneath everything you have been maintaining. And that space is where change begins. Not forced change, but natural change. The kind that happens when you stop holding yourself in a place that you have already outgrown. And even though this process can feel uncertain, even though it can feel like you are losing your sense of direction, what is actually happening is something very different. You are no longer blindly following a path. You are beginning to see it. So, if you recognize yourself in this, if there is a part of you that has been quietly carrying this feeling, this subtle but persistent sense that something in your life no longer feels fully aligned, Then before you try to fix it, before you try to silence it or push it away, just pause for a moment and allow yourself to really acknowledge what is there. Because this feeling is not random. It is not something that suddenly appeared without reason. And it is not a sign that you are failing at life. It is a sign that something inside you has changed. Even if the rest of your life has not caught up yet. And that can feel deeply uncomfortable. Because there is a part of you that still wants certainty, that still wants clarity, that still wants to know exactly where you are going and what you are supposed to do next. But this moment does not give you that. Instead, it asks something much more difficult of you. It asks you to stay present, without immediately trying to escape into answers, to sit with the uncertainty, without rushing back to what feels familiar, to allow something new to emerge, without forcing it into a shape that already exists. And that is not easy, because everything you have learned has taught you to move quickly, to decide, to control, to make things make sense as soon as possible. But this process does not follow that rhythm. It unfolds slowly, quietly, often in ways that are difficult to see at first. And yet, if you stay with it, if you resist the urge to turn away from it, you begin to notice something subtle, but incredibly important. You begin to feel a shift, not necessarily in your circumstances, but in your relationship to yourself. You start to recognize what feels true and what doesn't. You start to see where you have been holding on to things that no longer belong to you, and where something new is trying to take shape, even if it is still unclear. And from that place, something begins to grow. Not a sudden transformation, but a gradual realignment, a movement back towards something that feels more honest, more grounded, more real. And over time, that changes everything, because the life you build from that place is no longer something you are trying to maintain. It becomes something you are actually connected to. So if you are in this space right now, if you feel like you are somewhere in between, no longer who you used to be, but not yet fully who you are becoming, understand that this is not a dead end. This is not where things fall apart. This is where things begin to shift. And even if it doesn't feel clear yet, even if it feels uncertain, confusing, or uncomfortable, you are closer to yourself than you might think. Because the truth is, you are not lost. You are in the middle of becoming someone your old life could no longer contain. And that process, no matter how uncomfortable it may feel, is leading you somewhere that is far more aligned with who you truly are. So don't rush it. Don't force it. And most importantly, don't turn away from it. Because everything you are searching for begins the moment you stop running from yourself. And if this message resonated with you, if you felt something in yourself while listening to this, then take that as a sign to slow down, to pay attention, and to continue exploring this path in your own way. And if you want more content like this, content that helps you understand yourself on a deeper level and navigate these inner shifts with more clarity, consider subscribing to the channel. Because this is a space where we explore what most people tend to ignore, and where you are reminded that what you are going through has meaning.